Hey, WTF history fans, buckle up because we're about to dive into one of the darkest, wildest stories in history, the twisted saga of Vlad the Impaler. Picture this. It's 1462. It's a message, a nightmare arranged with mathematical precision, a symphony of suffering that screams one name, Vlad Dracula. Welcome to WTF History, where we dig into the past's most unhinged corners. And today, we're starting a journey into the mind of man who turned trauma into terror. You've probably heard of Vlad the Impaler, the guy who inspired vampire legends, the medieval warlord who made enemies tremble. But what you might not know is how a scared 11-year-old boy, trapped in the glittering halls of the Ottoman Empire, became the architect of this horror show. This isn't just a tale of cruelty, it's about survival, vengeance. He's not exactly a softie. His nickname is the Conqueror for a reason. But as his horse crests a hill overlooking Targovist, even he freezes. His generals, hardened men who've seen it all, watch the color drain from his face. The field before them isn't chaos. It's order. And that's what makes it so terrifying. 20,000 stakes, each driven into the ground with eerie precision. Certain bodies are arranged to spell out words in Arabic. Not just any words, personal ones, phrases only someone who'd lived in the Ottoman palace would know. Mem's jaw tightens. He knows who did this. This isn't just a warning to his army. It's a letter addressed to him, written in blood and decay. The man behind this is no stranger. He's Vlad, a boy Mem once knew, a hostage in his father's court, a kid who learned the Ottoman way of power and turned it into something even they couldn't stomach. So, how does someone go from a terrified kid to a guy who builds a literal forest of death? To understand that, we need to rewind to 1442, to a marble corridor in the Ottoman palace where an 11-year-old boy is pressing himself against the wall, heart pounding, listening to the footsteps of a guard coming closer. This is Vlad, son of Vlad II Dracul, a noble from Wallachia, a small Christian kingdom caught between the Ottomans and the Hungarians. Vlad and his younger brother Radu were sent to the Sultan's court as hostages to ensure their dad's loyalty. Officially, they're honored guests, dressed in silk, eating off golden plates, learning Turkish and court etiquette. Sounds fancy, right? But the truth is grim. The Ottoman court was a place of beauty and brutality, where privilege came with a price. For Vlad, Radu adapts, charming his captors, leaning into their world. The court had a tradition of educating non-Muslim boys like Vlad and Radu. Officially, it's about turning them into loyal administrators or soldiers. Unofficially, the prettier ones, with their pale skin and noble features, were used for other purposes. The abuse Vlad endured wasn't just physical, it was psychological warfare. Every night, they told him this was an honor, that his suffering was a gift to the empire. Love was pain. Safety was submission. The soft Turkish music playing in the background became a soundtrack he'd grow to hate, a mask for the horrors unfolding. Years later, when he's ruling Wallachia, Vlad bans all music from his court. His nobles think it's about piety. They don't know it's because those notes drag him back to that room. Vlad survives by detaching. His body's there, but his mind floats somewhere else, up near the ceiling, watching the boy below like a stranger. He studies the mechanics of power, the way control is exerted, the precise ways a human can be broken. His tutors think they're molding a puppet prince to send back to Wallachia. They're wrong. They're forging a weapon, one that's memorizing every moment, every violation, not to forget, but to perfect. 6 years of bearable days and unbearable nights. Radu, meanwhile, earns the nickname Radu the Handsome, charming the court, even converting to Islam. He becomes the favorite of Mehmed. The Sultan's son, who writes him poetry, promises him power, makes him feel chosen. It's a different kind of violation, wrapped in affection, but no less damaging. The breaking point comes in Vlad's 6th year. He's taller now, stronger, his voice cracking with adolescence. He's becoming less useful to his handlers, more dangerous. So, they decide to break him physically, using a wooden pole, carefully shaped, surgically precise, a punishment Vlad will later make his signature. But the worst moment isn't the pain. It's the night the footsteps pass his door and go to Radu's room instead. Being chosen was torture, but being forgotten is worse. That night, pressing his fists against the cold marble until they bleed, Vlad swears he'll never be powerless again. It's the birth of Vlad Dracula, the moment a scared kid decides to become a nightmare. When their father is murdered in 1447, the brothers' paths split completely. Vlad, now 16, takes it as proof that trust is weakness. Radu, 13 and deep in trauma bonds, clings to Mehmed, taking the name Radu Bey. To Vlad, this is treason, not just against their family, but against his own suffering. When he escapes the palace in 1448, he carries those marble corridors with him, not as memories, but as blueprints for what he'll do to the world. He's not yet the Impaler, but the seeds are planted deep and toxic, and they're about to sprout in ways that'll make history shudder. By 1448, Vlad's back in Wallachia, a rugged land of forests and mountains squeezed between empires. He's barely 17, but the boy who walked out of the palace isn't the same one who went in. Those 6 years taught him that power isn't about swords or crowns. It's about control, precision, and making people too scared to even think of crossing you. Wallachia is a mess. Rival nobles, called boyars, are scheming. The Ottomans are demanding tribute, and Vlad's claim to the throne is shaky. His dad played both sides, which got him killed, and now Vlad's got to prove he's not just another pawn. He seizes the throne for the first time with Hungarian backing. But it's a short reign, barely a couple of months before he's ousted. Still, it's enough to start experimenting. Fast forward to 1456, and Vlad's back on the throne for his second, more infamous reign. This time, he's not messing around. Wallachia's nobles are used to backstabbing and bribing their way to influence. But Vlad's got a new playbook. He invites the boyars to a grand feast in Targovist, his capital. They show up expecting wine and flattery. Instead, Vlad's guards lock the doors. He accuses them of betraying his father, of weakening Wallachia, of being too soft on the Ottomans. Before the night's over, dozens are dead, some say impaled right there in the banquet hall. The rest are marched to a fortress and forced to build it brick by brick. A humiliating punishment for men who thought they were untouchable. Vlad's sending a message. Loyalty is non-negotiable, and he's watching. Now, let's talk about those stakes. You've heard the stories. Vlad impaling his enemies, leaving forests of bodies to rot. But it's not random cruelty. Every stake, every placement, every angle is deliberate. In the Ottoman court, Vlad learned precision, how to control through pain. Back in Wallachia, he turns them into something industrial. By 1459, he's got craftsmen working overtime, not on castles or weapons, but on stakes. He calls in the best woodworkers, and they're probably thinking they're building fortifications. Nope, they're in a torture laboratory, and Vlad's the lead scientist. He's obsessive, running his fingers along the wood, testing the grain, measuring circumferences like an architect. Too sharp, he says, tossing aside a pointed stake. Death needs to take days, not hours. A sharp stake kills too quickly, piercing vital organs. Vlad wants slow, excruciating suffering. He designs stakes with dulled tips to push organs aside, letting gravity do the work as the victim slides down over days. He insists the stakes be soaked in oil, not for preservation, but for smoothness, reducing friction to prolong the agony. If this sounds disturbingly specific, it is. Vlad's not just torturing people. He's recreating sensations he knows intimately from his past. He tests each stake himself, overseeing impalements like a scientist running experiments. Criminals are brought to his workshop, and he takes notes too fast or adjusts the taper. His advisors think he's maximizing pain, but it's more than that. He's recreating his own trauma, ensuring every detail mirrors what was done to him. The angle of entry? It's the same angle he endured, designed to hit nerves without killing, to keep the victim conscious. His craftsmen notice his breathing changes during these sessions, shallow, rapid, like he's reliving something. Sometimes he whispers in Turkish, words they don't understand, his hands shaking with rage. Vlad's not just punishing enemies, he's rewriting his history. Every stake is a declaration. I'm not the one being entered anymore. I'm the one who enters. Every scream is an echo of his own, but now he's in control. He sets up a bureaucracy of impalement. Specific crimes get specific stake sizes. Certain angles send certain messages. What looks like chaos to outsiders is a language to Vlad, one that speaks of power and vengeance. And he's not just targeting criminals or enemies. He's targeting anyone who reminds him of his own vulnerability. Take the women, for example. Vlad's punishments for women accused of sexual crimes, like adultery, are particularly brutal. In 1459, a merchant's wife in Targovist is accused of cheating with a blacksmith. In another court, she might have been whipped or banished. But Vlad's justice is different. He's not hearing her excuses about her husband's coldness. He's hearing the voices from the palace, the ones that talked about sacred bonds and honor through submission. He orders a special steak, heated red hot, designed to purify. The heat, he tells his horrified court, will seal the corruption inside her. Her screams are meant to teach every woman in Wallachia that their bodies aren't their own to command. This isn't just about justice. It's personal. In the palace, Vlad was feminized, made passive, stripped of agency. Now, he's punishing that part of himself through others. Women who defy him, who show no shame, get special attention. He studies their faces, waiting for the moment their defiance breaks, because he needs to see it. One woman, as she's prepared for the stake, looks at him and says, "You're not punishing me for what I did. You're punishing me for what was done to you." The court goes silent. Vlad's mask slips, and for a moment, everyone sees the broken kid beneath the prince. Then he orders her punishment to last a week, as if more blood could erase her words. Vlad's not just ruling Wallachia, he's turning it into a stage for his trauma. And the stage is about to get bigger. He starts dining among the impaled, setting up feasts in fields of dying men. Easter Sunday, 1459, he's eating off silver plates, crystal goblets sparkling, while 1,000 victims moan around him. He positions his chair close enough to touch a writhing merchant, saying, "I want to see his eyes while I eat." The moans, the creaking stakes, the blood pooling in the mud, it's all part of the experience. He's not just eating. He's communing, taking life while surrounded by death, reversing the powerlessness he felt in the palace. One victim, an Ottoman ambassador, catches his attention. The man still speaking, reciting a prayer Vlad recognizes from the palace, a prayer tied to the ceremonies where he was violated. Vlad's wine glass shatters in his hand. He orders the man taken down, wounds treated just enough to keep him alive, then re-impaled at a new angle, so he can keep talking. Sing for me. Vlad says in perfect Turkish. Sing the songs from the palace. For 3 days, the man's forced to recreate the soundtrack of Vlad's nightmares while Vlad feasts below, each song fueling his need for more victims. This is just the beginning, and as Vlad's reign grows darker, his methods are about to get even more unhinged. By the late 1450s, Vlad's reign is a masterclass in terror, and Wallachia is starting to feel like a stage for his darkest memories. Every morning, he wakes up in his castle, and it's like he's still hearing those Ottoman footsteps coming down the corridor. The marble halls are gone, but they live in his head, shaping every decision. He's obsessed with control, not just over his kingdom, but over the very idea of violation. One of his creepiest innovations isn't a torture device, at least not in the physical sense. It's a golden goblet, Byzantine craftsmanship, inscribed with holy verses, worth more than most peasants will ever see. He places it by a fountain in Targovist's central square, unguarded, gleaming in the sun. Look at it, he tells visiting merchants, his voice carrying that eerie calm that makes everyone nervous. In Constantinople, this would be stolen in minutes. Here, it's been untouched for years. Want to know why? They know why. Everyone in Wallachia knows. Touch that cup, and you're on a stake, probably one of Vlad's custom designs. But the goblet's more than bait. It's a test. A way for Vlad to prove he's created a world where precious things stay inviolable, unlike his own childhood. Every dawn, he checks it himself, sometimes still in his night clothes, lifting it, feeling its weight, checking for fingerprints or scratches. The townspeople watch from the corners of their eyes, knowing his mood depends on that cup's position. One morning, he notices it's moved, an inch, barely noticeable, but to Vlad, it's a violation. The square empties as word spreads. The voivode's found something. He interrogates hundreds, merchants, guards, priests, even prostitutes, checking footprints, testing the goblet for skin oils. He's not just looking for a thief. He's looking for proof that his power is absolute. Turns out a cat bumped it, but Vlad can't accept that. In his world, every movement has intent. Every violation has a violator. This paranoia spills into everything. He starts leaving other treasures around Targovist. Silver plates, jewelry, weapons, all meticulously placed, all checked daily. The city becomes a museum of untouched valuables. A place where people avoid even looking at these objects. Kids are taught to steer clear of the fountain. Merchants take detours. Even animals seem to sense the danger. The goblet isn't just a cup. It's Vlad's psyche on display, his need to prove he's no longer the helpless boy whose body was anyone's to take. But this obsession with control is about to push his tortures to new, horrifying heights. Vlad's stakes are perfected by now, but he's not stopping there. He's got a new toy, a massive copper cauldron, built to his exact specifications. Metalworkers from Brasov spend 6 months crafting a vessel big enough for 3 men, with a lid that has precisely measured holes for their heads. Vlad tests the fit himself, sliding his own neck through to show how it should work. Just enough room to keep the head above water while the body boils below. It's not just about killing. It's about forcing victims to watch their own destruction, fully conscious, unable to escape. The cauldron's first test comes with 3 Byzantine merchants caught cheating on taxes. Vlad's there, directing servants to fill it with water, stoke the fires, and fit the merchants' necks through the holes. Their heads stick out like grotesque flowers, and Vlad's voice takes on a distant tone as he explains. In Constantinople, they had marble baths, heated just so, where boys were purified. The water starts warm, almost pleasant. But that's the cruelest part. As it heats, The screams fade to whimpers, vocal cords giving out. Vlad leans in, studying their faces, comparing their agony to his own memories. He adds a twist. As the water boils, he tosses in the merchant's fraudulent papers, stolen coins, their personal belongings. They're literally stewing in their crimes. Then he brings their families to the courtyard, not to watch, but to stir the cauldron with ladles, making them complicit. It's a sick echo of the Ottoman palace, where Vlad was forced to thank his abusers, to participate in his own degradation. The family's horror mirrors his own, and that's the point. He's not just punishing, he's recreating his trauma. But this time, he's the one holding the reins. Then there's the goat torture. So bizarre it sounds almost absurd until you understand context. A Janissary captain, one of the Sultan's elite soldiers, is bound to a tilted wooden frame, feet bare and elevated. Vlad has servants wash the man's feet with warm water, then coat them in coarse salt. 3 goats are led in, their bells tinkling, and they start licking. At first, the captain laughs, it tickles. Vlad pulls up a chair, sipping wine, and says, "Tell me about your training, the early years, when you were still soft enough to break." By hour 3, the laughter's gone. The goats' rough tongues have worn through skin, the salt grinding into raw flesh. What started as tickling is now burning agony. Vlad leans forward, studying every flinch, every gasp, waiting for the moment pleasure turns to pain, a moment he knows too well from the palace, where gentleness became its own kind of violence. When the captain whispers, "I know why you watch so closely," Vlad snaps. He orders the goats removed. The man's flayed feet wrapped in silk, the same silk from the palace, then resalted with honey and brought back for round 2. "Laugh," Vlad says. "Laugh like your life depends on it." Because it does. These tortures aren't just about pain. They're about control, about forcing others to relive Vlad's breaking points. Those who perform their suffering just right might live, broken but breathing, to spread the word of what happens when you defy the Impaler. Those who don't, they're added to the growing forest of stakes. And as Vlad's paranoia grows, those forests are about to get even more elaborate. By 1460, Vlad's reign is a nightmare, and his tortures are getting more personal, each one a twisted reflection of his past. His focus on women accused of sexual crimes, like adultery, is particularly brutal. Picture a scene in Targovist. A merchant's wife stands before Vlad's throne, accused of cheating. She tries to explain her husband's neglect, a moment of weakness, but Vlad's not listening. His eyes are distant, like he's hearing voices from the palace. He orders a steak, but not the usual kind. This one's heated red hot, designed to purify as it penetrates. The court gasps as he explains the heat will cauterize her corruption, sealing it inside. It's not just about pain. It's about making her a lesson, a warning to every woman in Wallachia that their choices aren't theirs to make. This focus on women reveals something raw. In the palace, Vlad was stripped of his masculinity, made passive, turned into something his abusers could control. Now, he's punishing that feminized part of himself through others. He asks these women questions that have nothing to do with their crimes. Did you enjoy it? Did you seek it out? Who corrupted who? He's judging his own past, trying to make sense of the blame he was forced to carry. When one woman defies him, refusing to beg, he supervises her punishment himself, watching for the moment her strength cracks, the same moment he remembers when defiance turned to desperation. He needs to see it again to know he's not alone. But Vlad's not just targeting women. His copper cauldron becomes a favorite for betrayers of trust, corrupt priests, disloyal officials. In 1460, he uses it on a priest caught selling relics. The man's locked in, head poking through the lid, watching his body boil while Vlad sits nearby, asking, "Did you think your vows were just words?" The priest's family is forced to stir the pot, their hands shaking as they become complicit. Vlad's recreating the palace, where he was made complicit in his own violation. He adds the priest's stolen relics to the water, making him stew in his sins. Some accounts say Vlad used the broth in other tortures, rubbing it into wounds or forcing victims to consume it. It's recycling cruelty, turning each death into fuel for the next. The golden goblet remains his obsession, a test of his power's reach. He starts suspecting everyone, advisors, servants, allies. A boyar who looks at him too long gets questioned. A guard who hesitates gets a stake. Wallachia is turning into a pressure cooker, and Vlad's stoking the fire. One day, a street orphan is caught sleeping near the goblet. He's young, beautiful, with features that remind Vlad's guards of Radu. Vlad stares at the boy, whispering his brother's name, his mind spiraling. The boy didn't touch the cup, but to Vlad, he's a symbol, a reminder of innocence he lost, of Radu's betrayal. Instead of killing him, Vlad chains him to the fountain, making him the goblet's guardian, turning a potential violator into a protector, just as Vlad trying to turn his violated self into a violator. Radu's shadow is growing. Reports from Constantinople paint him as Mem's golden boy, a general draped in silk, commanding respect. To Vlad, it's not just betrayal. It's proof that Radu chose to thrive where Vlad suffered. When a prisoner mentions Radu's name, Vlad's composure cracks. He orders a steak worthy of my brother's friends, and the impalement becomes a performance, a way to lash out at Radu's pity from afar. But as Vlad's war with the Ottomans heats up, his brother's presence is about to become more than just a shadow. By 1461, Vlad's done playing defense. The Ottomans are pushing harder, demanding tribute and loyalty. But Vlad's throwing their playbook back in their faces. He stops paying tribute, executes their envoys, and sends their heads back to Constantinople. It's a declaration of war, but it's personal. He's taunting Mehmed, daring him to come to Wallachia, to see what his former hostage has become. His forest of stakes are growing, dotting the countryside like grim sculptures. Each one's a message to the boy he was, the one who swore he'd never be powerless again. He arranges them in patterns, rows, circles, spirals, that mimic the palace ceremonies where he was displayed. Turkish prisoners recognize the techniques, whispering Kazikli, Impaler in Turkish before they die. Vlad leans in close, speaking flawless Turkish. I learned from the best. One night, he sneaks into an Ottoman camp and leaves a dozen impaled soldiers, arranged to spell out a message in Arabic. Words only someone from the palace would know, personal insults aimed at Mehmed. When the Ottomans wake up, they're not just scared, they're shaken. This isn't war, it's psychological warfare, and Vlad's playing at a level they've never seen. But then comes a moment that shakes Vlad to his core. During a cauldron execution, a corrupt official's face twists in agony, and he says, I know you, Kazikli Voivode. I was there in the marble halls. I held you down. It's a guard from the palace, older now, but unmistakable. Vlad's world tilts. The cauldron's not enough. He orders the man pulled out, half-cooked, kept alive, then subjected to every method in his arsenal. Steaks, goats, burning irons. Nothing satisfies. The man dies after weeks, but Vlad feels no closure, only a deeper, emptier rage. This encounter breaks something in Vlad. He's been building a world where he's untouchable, but this guard's face is proof that his past is still out there, still watching. He doubles down, ordering more steaks, more feasts, more tests like the goblet. He starts leaving treasures all over Wallachia. Swords, jewels, coins, all untouched. All proof that his power can make things sacred. But it's not enough. The goblet's still his obsession, and when he finds it moved again, he blames the orphan chained to the fountain. The boys become a mirror, reflecting Vlad's fractured mind. And as the Ottomans close in, that mirror's about to crack. It's early 1462, and Vlad's preparing for the big one. Mem's coming with an army that could crush Wallachia. But Vlad's not planning to fight fair. He's building a forest of stakes, bigger than anything before, a display that'll stop the Sultan in his tracks. Craftsmen work around the clock, clearing forests, forging metal caps, boiling vats of oil. It's not just a defense, it's a masterpiece, a symphony of suffering designed to scream one thing. I remember. His tortures are getting more elaborate, each one tied to a specific memory. This silk room is a new addition, draped in the same silk from the palace, where prisoners are tied down and subjected to gentle persuasion with heated blades. A Turkish diplomat recognizes the setup and begs for a quick death. Vlad smiles, speaking Turkish. "You know this room, don't you? Tell me about it." The man's forced to recount his role in the palace, his words becoming part of the torture. Then there's the fire pit, used on a group of rebels caught plotting against him. He herds them into a pit filled with oil-soaked wood, lights it himself, and watches from a hill as the flames climb. He tells his court it's about cleansing treason, but it's really about recreating the suffocating heat of the palace baths. The screams, the smell of burning flesh. It's a twisted echo of his past, a way to burn away the boy he was. Radu's name keeps coming up, driving Vlad to new extremes. When a prisoner mentions his brother's latest victory, Vlad orders a stake fit for my brother's glory. Massive and polished, and the impalement becomes a spectacle, a way to lash out at Radu's pity. But then, during a routine execution, a merchant on a stake gasps out a name, Cuddy Husian, the palace judge who oversaw Vlad's education. It's not Cuddy himself, but the mention sends Vlad spiraling. He orders the man subjected to every torture, stakes, fire, blades, try to erase the memory. It doesn't work. The more he kills, the louder the voices get. His court notices he's less precise, more frantic, his hands shaking as he designs new stakes. Wallachia's people are breaking under the strain. The goblet, the stakes, the feasts, it's all creating a culture of fear where no one feels safe. Even Vlad's allies are wavering, whispering about his sanity. As summer 1462 approaches, Vlad's ready for his biggest act yet. Mem's army is closing in, and Vlad's pouring everything into his forest of stakes, 20,000 bodies, arranged in concentric circles around Targovist, each one measured to the millimeter. The outermost ring holds common soldiers, their bodies shriveled. Moving inward, the stakes get taller, holding officers, nobles, then figures in Ottoman court dress, preserved with salt and oils to keep them recognizable. The patterns mimic the palace ceremonies, a grotesque parody of the displays where Vlad was paraded. Turkish prisoners whisper Kazikli as they die, recognizing their own methods turned against them. The stench hits Mem's army first, a choking wall of decay that makes horses rear and soldiers vomit. Fresh corpses, rotting flesh, dry bones. It's a timeline of Vlad's campaign. The sounds are worse. Moans, gasps, creaking stakes, a choir of agony timed to greet the Ottomans. Mem pulls his horse to a stop, his generals watching as his face pales. The patterns, circles, elevated rows, bodies posed in submission, mimic the palace. Among the stakes, Arabic words spell out personal insults, phrases only a hostage would know. Brother, one reads, a nod to Mem's past with Vlad. At the center, on the tallest stake, is an effigy of the Ottoman system, impaled like a conquered enemy. Mem whispers, he remembers, and there's fear in his voice. This isn't a battlefield. It's a mirror, and Vlad's holding it up to show what he's become. Back in Targovist, Vlad watches from his castle's tower, waiting for Mem's reaction. He's poured everything into this. Years of rage, pain, planning. The forest is his autobiography, every stake a chapter of his trauma. He's not smiling, though. Victory would mean his tormentors understanding their crimes, but he knows they'll just see the horror and run. His court is silent, his advisors too afraid to speak. The boy chained to the goblet is still there, his hollow eyes watching Vlad check the cup one last time. It's untouched, but it's not enough to quiet the voices in his head. Mem's reaction is what Vlad wants. The Sultan hesitates, his army shaken. Some say he orders a retreat, unwilling to face the man who created this. Others say he pushes forward but loses heart. His men spooked by Vlad's night raids and more stakes appearing overnight. But there's another player in this game, Radu, Vlad's brother, riding with the Ottomans. Radu's no longer just a shadow. He's here, leading troops, his charm and loyalty to Mem to stark contrast to Vlad's terror. To Vlad, it's the ultimate betrayal. When he hears Radu's with the army, his tortures take a darker turn, targeting prisoners who resemble his brother. Young, beautiful, charming. One Turkish noble smile reminds Vlad of Radu, and he orders a steak worthy of my brother's court. Watching the impalement like it's a personal vendetta, the past keeps coming for Vlad. During a feast among the impaled, a prisoner gasps out the name Cuddy Husian, the palace judge. It's not Cuddy, but the mention is enough to send Vlad spiraling. He orders every torture in his arsenal. But the screams don't satisfy. They make the voices louder. His court sees him unraveling, his hands shaking, his orders frantic. The goblet, the stakes, the feasts, it's all creating a world where fear is the only law. The boy by the fountain, still chained, becomes a fixation. Vlad talks to him, calling him Radu, asking why he betrayed him. The boy's silence feels like judgment. As summer turns to fall, the Ottomans regroup, and Radu takes center stage. Mem puts him forward as a rival claimant to Walachia's throne. Radu's charm and Ottoman backing start winning over nobles tired of Vlad's terror. Vlad's guerrilla tactics are still effective, but he's losing ground. By late 1462, he's forced to flee Targovist, betrayed by his allies. He heads to Transylvania, seeking Hungarian support, but they're wary of him. His reputation as the Impaler is spreading, and not everyone sees it as strength. He's captured by the Hungarians in December 1462, imprisoned for years. Even in captivity, he's still Vlad, impaling rats in his cell, arranging their bodies in patterns that echo his forests. Radu takes Walachia's throne, ruling with Ottoman support, a stark contrast to Vlad's reign of fear. To Vlad, it's the ultimate betrayal. His brother, the palace's golden boy, sitting where he should be. Vlad's released in 1476 and briefly reclaims Wallachia, but his time's running out. Late that year, during a battle with Ottoman-backed forces, he's killed, some say by his own men, others by an assassin. His head sent to Constantinople, displayed as proof that the Impaler's done. Estimates say he killed 40,000 to 100,000 people, a staggering number for a small kingdom. But Vlad's story isn't about triumph, it's about trauma. Every stake, every torture, every scream was an attempt to rewrite his past. to prove he wasn't the helpless boy in the palace. He didn't transcend his pain. He became it, turning his suffering into a system that broke others. The forest of stakes stopped Mehmed, but it didn't erase the marble corridors in Vlad's head. Radu's pity, Mehmed's fear, the goblet's untouchability. They were all pieces of a puzzle he could never solve. He wasn't just fighting enemies. He was fighting himself, and that's a battle no one wins. Vlad's legacy lives on, not just in history, but in myths. He's Dracula, the vampire, the monster who drinks life to escape death. But the real Vlad was painfully human, a boy who survived hell and built a new one to prove he could. His story's a warning. Trauma doesn't just scar, it can reshape the world in its image. From the golden goblet to the forest of stakes, Vlad turned his pain into power, but at a cost that echoed far beyond Wallachia. That's it for Vlad's saga, folks. What a wild, dark ride it's been. If you're as hooked on history's most unhinged stories as we are, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and drop a comment. Tell us what you think of Vlad's story or what other twisted tales you want us to cover. Did the Forest of Stakes give you chills? Is there another historical figure you're dying to know about? Let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay curious and maybe keep an eye out for any golden goblets in your town square. You never know what they're hiding.